There's a moment in every man's life when something clicks, when the illusion shatters, the fantasy fades, and he finally sees women not as idealized goddesses or validation machines, but as real, emotional, layered human beings. That moment changes everything. Because once you see this side of women, you'll never chase again. Not because you don't desire them, not because you're bitter or jaded, but because you finally understand the game. And more importantly, you rise above it. Most men operate from lack. They see a beautiful woman and instantly their mind attaches meaning to her. She's the one, she could complete me. If I get her, I'll finally feel worthy. And in that instant, he gives away all his power. He begins chasing, performing, pleasing, hoping that she'll choose him, validate him, approve of him. But here's the truth. When you're in chase mode, you're not leading, you're following. You're not grounded, you're reactive. And women may entertain that for a while, but they don't respect it. Not on a soul level. The feminine doesn't trust a man who abandons himself just to win her attention. So let's talk about what most men don't see. You see, women operate on energy, emotion, subtle cues. They test not to be cruel, but to feel your strength. They'll say things that trigger your ego. They'll withhold validation. They'll shift their mood without warning. And if you're unconscious, you'll take it all personally. You'll spiral. You'll try harder to win her back. You'll chase. But if you're aware, you'll see the deeper truth. She's not testing your worth. She's testing your center. She wants to know, can you remain grounded when the emotional winds blow? Can you hold your frame when she loses hers? Because that's what makes her feel safe. That's what makes her respect you. That's what makes her open. Most men get trapped chasing the version of a woman that only exists when she's on her best behavior, when she's smiling, laughing, admiring you. And the second that shifts, they panic. But a high-value man, he understands the entire spectrum of the feminine. He doesn't flinch when she pulls away. He doesn't beg when she goes quiet. He doesn't chase when she becomes cold. Because he knows this is all part of the dance, he sees the emotional tests not as attacks, but as invitations. Opportunities to show his strength, not through control, but through calmness, through presence, through unwavering self-worth. And that's when the feminine energy melts. That's when the walls fall. That's when she comes closer, not because you chased, but because you stayed still. Stillness is not weakness, it's power. Let me be clear, this isn't about being passive. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. This is about embodying a new way of being. A way where your value is no longer tied to whether or not she likes you. A way where your sense of worth doesn't rise or fall with her attention. Because once you see women as mirrors, not rewards, you stop chasing and start leading. You realize that the woman who ignores you is revealing where you still crave validation. The woman who criticizes you is showing you where you still seek approval. The woman who withdraws emotionally is inviting you to become emotionally self-sufficient. Women are not your enemy, they are your mirror. But most men can't handle the reflection. So they chase. They chase approval. They chase attention. They chase a fantasy that was never real. And in doing so, they lose themselves. But you're waking up. You're beginning to see the truth. The moment you stop needing her is the moment she starts needing you. Not because you're manipulating her, not because you're playing hard to get, but because your energy becomes rare, grounded, magnetic, unbothered. And women feel that. They crave that. It's the difference between the man who says, please choose me, and the man who says, I already chose myself. Now let's go deeper. When you see this side of women, the emotional waves, the mood swings, the projections, you stop getting angry at it. You stop reacting. You stop chasing calmness from her and start creating it within yourself. And that's when you unlock a whole new level of power. You begin to see that feminine chaos isn't something to fight. It's something to understand, to witness, to lead through. The moment you chase her peace, you lose your own. But the moment you become peace, she follows your lead. That's masculine polarity. That's leadership. And it only comes when you stop living from desperation and start living from purpose. A man on purpose doesn't chase women. He attracts them. He doesn't need to convince her to stay. His presence is enough. He doesn't need constant validation. He gives himself the approval he used to beg for. And ironically, when a man stops chasing, the right women start coming forward. Not the ones who need attention, not the ones who want to control, but the ones who are drawn to depth, to stability, to soul, you see. When you're desperate, you attract drama. When you're grounded, you attract peace. And women feel the difference. The same woman who ignored your text when you were chasing her suddenly becomes curious when you stop reaching out. Not because she's playing a game, but because energy doesn't lie. She feels the shift. She feels the detachment. She feels your power return to you. And in that shift, she feels something rare a man who is whole with or without her. That is irresistible. So understand this: you were never supposed to chase. You were supposed to become. Become a man of value, a man of vision, a man of presence. And when you do, you no longer hope to be chosen, because you've already chosen your path. Once you truly see women, not the filtered Instagram version, not the wounded version, not the fantasy your ego created, but the real emotional, multi-dimensional feminine energy, you stop seeking it out of lack. You start relating to it from fullness. And that's when love becomes powerful. That's when relationships become elevated. That's when your presence becomes a gift, not a transaction. You stop asking, how can I get her to like me? And you start asking, is she aligned with the man I'm becoming? That's the real shift. You become a selector, not a seeker. You lead, you build, you grow. And the women who are meant to walk with you will show up. Not because you chase them, but because your energy became undeniable. And the ones who leave, you let them, not with anger, not with resentment, but with peace. Because when you're rooted in your truth, you don't fear loss, you trust alignment. You're no longer shaken by rejection. You're no longer derailed by silence. You're no longer triggered by her tests. Because you see it all now. You see the emotional games not as threats, but as echoes of her own insecurity. You see the pullbacks not as punishment, but as protection, an invitation to lead deeper. You see that your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Your power was never in her hands, it was in your awareness all along. And once you see this side of women, the real side, the emotional side, the sacred side, you never chase again. Because now you understand that she's not the prize, you are the prize. And the man who knows that doesn't run, he walks with intention, with vision, with strength. And if she's aligned, she'll walk with him. Not because he begged, not because he chased, but because his presence led her home, to herself, to her feminine, to the kind of man who doesn't follow emotion, but leads it. And that, my brother, is the beginning of a life where you don't chase anything. You attract everything by becoming the man you were always meant to be. The version of women that most men chase is a surface level illusion shaped by desire, fantasy, and ego. But once you see the deeper truth of feminine energy, your entire mindset shifts from chasing to attracting. Here's what most men don't realize: the woman they're chasing doesn't actually exist. She's not real. She's a projection. An ideal crafted by years of media conditioning, romantic delusion, and internal emptiness. She's the woman in the filtered photos, in the romanticized daydreams, in the fantasies built to fill a void. She's perfect in the mind, effortless, sweet, sexy, submissive when convenient, independent when desirable. She's a highlight reel of traits pulled from ego, driven desire, not from authentic connection. And when a man chases that version of a woman, he's not relating to a human being. He's pursuing a fantasy. He's not seeing her. He's using her attention to feel important, using her affection to feel desired, using her presence to avoid the gaping silence of his own unhealed self. But there comes a moment, if you're lucky, when life breaks the illusion. Maybe she ghosted you. Maybe she left without explanation. Maybe you did everything right and she still chose someone else. And that pain, that confusion, that moment of why wasn't I enough? That's not failure, that's awakening. Because in that pain, you're being invited to see what most men never see, that the woman you were chasing was never the problem. The problem was the version of her your ego created. You weren't chasing a woman. You were chasing the feeling of being chosen. And that's the trap. But once the illusion breaks, once you stop chasing the surface and start observing the truth, you begin to see women, not the fantasy, not the filtered image, but the raw, radiant, emotional, chaotic, beautiful truth of feminine energy. You begin to see that the feminine isn't linear, it's not black and white. It flows, it moves, it feels deeply. You begin to notice her emotional expressions, not as drama, but as communication. You begin to realize that what you called mood swings are often just emotional waves she's riding through a world that rarely understands her. And suddenly you stop needing her to be perfect. You stop needing her to validate you. You stop chasing the version of her that made your ego feel alive. Instead, you begin attracting. Not because you played a game, not because you manipulated her emotions, but because your energy has shifted. You're no longer desperate. You're aware. You're no longer needy. You're present. You're no longer pursuing a fantasy. You're honoring reality. And women feel that. The kind of man who doesn't project fantasy but sees her truth. That man is rare. That man is magnetic. That man doesn't chase. He draws in. Because now, when you look at her, you're not thinking, how can I impress her? You're thinking, can she meet me where I'm going? As she aligned with the man I'm becoming? That's the shift. From fantasy to clarity. From seeking attention to setting standards. From being consumed by desire to being defined by purpose. When you see women clearly, you begin to appreciate them without attaching your worth to them. You begin to admire their feminine power, but you're not intoxicated by it. You're not seduced by the chaos. You're grounded in your own calm. You understand that her validation is a bonus, not a necessity. Her love is a gift, trophy. Her attention is welcomed, but not chased. And now, when you interact with women, you do so from fullness, not from lack. You lead with presence, not performance. You offer connection, not manipulation. And the right women respond to that, not the ones who want to be chased, not the ones who crave attention, but the ones who are seeking depth, the ones who want to be seen, not idolized, the ones who are tired of being someone's fantasy and ready to be someone's truth. And all of that starts with one simple shift: stop chasing the illusion. Start honoring reality. See her not as the answer to your emptiness, but as a mirror to your growth. Not as your savior, but as your reflection. Because when you stop needing her to complete you, you finally become a man who completes himself. And that man doesn't chase. He attracts. A high value man doesn't chase women because he understands the emotional cycles, hidden motives, and power dynamics most men are blind to. He sees the game behind the words. He sees the emotional push and pull not as random chaos, but as pattern behavior. He knows that most women don't even fully understand why they do what they do. But he does. Not because he's manipulative, not because he's playing games, but because he studied truth. He studied himself. And when a man truly understands himself, he begins to understand others, especially women. You see, the average man is reactive. He chases because he doesn't know what else to do. She pulls away, he texts more. She goes cold, he begs. She posts a seductive photo, he gives her the exact attention she wanted. And in doing so, he feeds the power imbalance without even realizing it. But the high value man, he doesn't react. He reads, he watches, he observes. Because he knows that a woman's behavior is often a reflection of where she is emotionally, not where he needs to be. He understands the emotional cycles, the warm and cold, the openness followed by withdrawal. He doesn't get offended when she suddenly becomes distant. He doesn't panic when she stops being overly affectionate. He knows this is part of the feminine rhythm. And more importantly, he knows it's not about him. Most men take everything personally. They make her every mood swing a referendum on their worth. But the high value man doesn't go there, because his worth was never dependent on her consistency. He also understands the hidden motives that play beneath the surface. Sometimes when she's acting cold, she doesn't want space. She wants to test, to see if he'll chase, to see if he'll abandon himself just to prove he cares, to see if he'll fall into emotional desperation just because she withdrew her energy. A high value man doesn't fall for it, not because he doesn't care, but because he's anchored in self respect. He knows the difference between being emotionally available and being emotionally dependent. He's open, but not needy. He's warm, but not desperate. He gives, but never at the cost of his dignity. That's what most men don't get. They think that being a good man means always running after her, proving yourself, fixing every mood. But the truth is, that's not leadership. That's emotional slavery. And no woman, no matter how emotionally chaotic, truly respects a man who dances for her approval. Because deep down, every woman is looking for a man who doesn't fold under pressure. A man who can witness her emotional wave without drowning in it. A man who can remain calm, steady, and unshaken, even when she's spiraling. That's not coldness, that's strength. And that strength is rare. You want to know why a high value man doesn't chase? Because he understands power dynamics. He knows that the person who chases holds less power, and he's not interested in tipping the scales that way. Not because he's arrogant, but because he knows the truth. The moment you make someone else your emotional source, you hand them the remote control to your peace. A high value man never does that. He doesn't allow the feminine to lead his emotions. He leads himself first. And from that leadership, women feel something rare: stability. They stop testing him. They stop playing games. They drop the drama. Because his energy doesn't fuel it, it neutralizes it. A high value man doesn't beg for a woman's time. He values his own time too much. He doesn't seek constant validation. He validates himself every day, through purpose, through progress, through presence. He doesn't chase attention. He commands respect. That's the real difference. And ironically, that's what draws women to him even more. Because once she feels that you're not easily moved, that you won't abandon yourself just to win her, she begins to feel something deeper than attraction. She feels trust. She feels safety. She feels your masculine polarity. And suddenly, you're no longer the man chasing her approval. You're the man she's leaning into. Not because you pursued her like everyone else, but because you stood out by doing what most men can't do. You kept your power. You led your emotions. You stayed rooted in your frame. So understand this. You don't rise into high value by chasing women. You rise by understanding women, by mastering emotional awareness, by recognizing the hidden layers most men can't even see. And when you do, the chase becomes irrelevant. Because the more deeply you understand the feminine, the more effortlessly the feminine comes to you. When you truly see the deeper side of women, their emotional tests, their unconscious projections, their need for masculine grounding, you stop pursuing them for validation and start leading from a place of unshakable self worth. You stop taking things personally. You stop overanalyzing her silence. You stop scrambling to fix her emotions. Because now you understand it's not always about you. It's about what she's navigating internally, emotionally, spiritually. It's about her need to feel held, not controlled, seen, not solved, led, not chased. The deeper side of women isn't revealed in their words, it's revealed in their energy. She may not say she's testing you, but she is. She may not realize she's projecting, but she does. And she may not openly ask for leadership, but she craves it. Here's the hard truth: most men avoiding women will test you. Not because they're cruel, but because they want to feel your center. They want to know if your masculinity is solid or just performative. They want to know, will he stay calm when I get chaotic? Will he stay true when I get emotional? Will he stay grounded when I try to shake him? Those aren't games, they're instincts. She doesn't even know she's doing it half the time. But deep in her feminine wiring, she's looking for safety. Not in the form of money or muscle or smooth talk. She's looking for emotional safety, the kind that only a man with inner stillness can give. When you see her emotional tests for what they are, you stop reacting. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't collapse or get angry. You simply hold your frame. You become the rock in the storm. And when she sees that she can't shake you, that you're not a boy pretending to be a man, she begins to trust you. She begins to relax into her feminine. This is the point where you stop chasing. Because you realize you were never meant to chase, you were meant to lead. Lead yourself, lead your emotions, lead the energy of your relationships with masculine clarity. And as for her projections, every woman, like every man, carries emotional wounds. And those wounds can bleed onto you. She might accuse you of things that aren't true. She might withdraw love to see how you react. She might place the weight of her past on your shoulders. But when you've done the inner work, when your self worth is forged in something deeper than her opinion, you don't get pulled in her emotional maze. You see it for what it is, not as an attack, not as disrespect, but as unhealed energy looking for safe direction. And you respond, not from ego, but from awareness. You don't try to fix her. You don't try to change her. You hold space for her to come back to herself. You stay in your masculine power, not to dominate, but to anchor. And this is where your dynamic with women changes forever. You're no longer the man who dances for her validation. You're no longer the man who overextends, overtexts, overproves. You're no longer the man who trades his peace for temporary affection. You are unshakable, because your worth is not up for negotiation. It's not dependent on how she feels about you in the moment. It's rooted in your mission, your values, your truth. And that kind of man, he's rare. He's the man women remember, the one they feel safe with, even when they respect, even when they disagree, the one they are drawn to, not because he chases, but because he leads. So if you want to stop chasing women, start by seeing beyond the surface. See the emotional depth she carries. See the chaos beneath her calm. See the fear behind her fire. See the need for strength beneath her storm. And then ask yourself, am I strong enough to hold this? Not to rescue her, not to fix her, but to remain steady while she finds her way. To be the grounded masculine energy that gives her permission to drop the performance and just be. Because that's what a woman truly craves. Not a man who chases her highs, but one who grounds her lows. Not a man who flatters her ego, but one who sees her soul. Not a man who wants her to complete him, but one who meets her in completeness. And once you become that man, chasing becomes pointless. You won't need to, because the right women will feel the difference. And they'll come to you not because you ran after them, but because you stood still in your truth.